I was always somebody who like talked to myself, but there was always this other self that I was talking to. I never didn't have that. That was always a part of my life. Then in the early 80s, I think it was sometime in the early 80s, I started like getting instructions. Instead of just like talking, I would get an instruction. I think the first thing that they said is that I write out my life up to now. And so I thought, well, that's cool. I could do that. Now, this was when computers were those little tiny things that only worked half the time. It was way back, you know. I did sort of do that, but I couldn't really type very good because, I got a C- in typing in school. When I just got to the feeling, what I got was go to the same place at the same time to build an energy field. And so I started doing that. I started getting up at a certain time and going to the same place and kind of meditating. I didn't really know what meditating was, but I just kind of closed my eyes and just listened to what I was getting. And then the next message was, all right, it's time to write it down. Now, writing it down is like, that takes forever and I can't share it with anybody. And so then I had to like get my typing skills together. Then when I could type decently, and I had a decent computer that I could type on, then I could get more instructions. So I started doing that. I started paying attention to this little bit of a thing here, this little bit of a thing there. One day it said, make a website. And I said, make a website? What? How? I don't know what that means. And then shortly after that, a girlfriend called me up and I told her about, make a website. And she said, oh, I know what that is. I'll make it for you for free. She did the outline and then I filled it in with the things that were written, but I couldn't have never done the outline. But it was just so copacetic. It just like came right in at that time. Then I started putting things on the internet. And then people could respond. And then it kind of like took off. The more I followed these inner instructions, the more inner instructions I got. I had learned if I ask the questions, I will get the answers. And that I would have to, it's best to write it down, write down the question and write down the answer, because it comes in a different way than we're used to. And, like, hi, Danny, what did you have for breakfast today? That's easy. You can go back there. But hi, Sue, how you doing? What was your message from the Arcturians today? It's like, well, I don't, let me look it up, because I couldn't retain that. It was too weird. Yeah. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your stuff now?
Oh, I love hearing other people's stories. It's always just so inspiring to hear like the beginning of how you, you're obviously so well known now and it's 2021, and to hear how this progressed from the 80s to now, it's just, that is always just so fascinating to me. Mine started in a way when I was a child that I was aware of, but I didn't have like a name, kind of similar to you. Like it was information and it was details that would come in mostly through dreams, mostly through like visions while I was a kid. For me, it was one of those things where it was like I would have this dream over and over and over again, or I would see these beings over and over and over again. It's nothing you can plan. Obviously, children have such a vivid imagination, but the thing that stuck out to me was that these dreams and these experiences, they felt like memories. And there was almost like this nostalgia that came with them. And I was, in grade school. How would I know what nostalgia feels like? Or, but there was a knowing. And I think a lot of people that are opened up to this can relate to that knowing, where you can't necessarily describe it with words because the words wouldn't do it justice. It's a very lived experience. And I would start to recognize patterns that would start to repeat, such as, oh, there's a ship. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, there's these beings in uniform. Interesting. I have no idea what that means, but they're back. Oh, there's these light beings, or like, oh, like I'm in a different planet again. Like, what's happening? So, this happened throughout my youth quite a bit, and then it started to slow down as I got older. But the interesting thing that happened when I got older is that when I moved out to the desert, I started seeing lights in the sky. And it would start with, I would just walk my dog every day. I was always out every day walking my dog, and no one else would be out at night. And I would look up, and there was always this same red light. Every time I was out there, it would go, and then it would stop, and then it would like pulse, and then it would keep going, and then sometimes it would multiply and come out in two. And I was like, this is interesting. And one day I knew, I was like, there's something to this. There's something to this. And one day I even got my dad to come out and see it, because one time it was right above the house. Yeah. And he was trying to say like, oh, it's a satellite, or maybe it's like a star or something. And he was trying to map it on his phone to figure out what it could be. And then the light split into three and went straight up into the sky. And he was like, oh, that's not a satellite. And I was like, no, it's not. So those were like some of my early experiences with becoming aware of, yes, there's definitely more out there. But I didn't relate those experiences that I was having with the ships until much later in my life, towards like the end of college. Because I wasn't really having those dreams anymore. I wasn't really seeing any of those lights as often. And then all of a sudden, when I started getting into meditations, my dreams, from the same dreams I would have when I was in grade school that had those nostalgia, those memories to them, they came back so vividly, to the point where I was remembering what age I was, what I was doing, where I was at. Like, it was just like, oh, like this just happened, but it was like, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah. And that's how I knew that what I was experiencing was very real, because I couldn't make up like, how can this just all of a sudden be appearing? I'm not planning it. How do you remember every single dream you've ever had when you were in grade school? It's like in a different part of your brain. And so I started to recognize that, oh, what I'm doing is activating another part of my brain, and it's opening up that inner channel that was so open when I was a child.
Exactly. Yeah, it is about opening the channel. And how do we open to the channel? Well, I don't think that there's a right way or wrong way. It's just that we have to find our way. And when we go through the process of finding our way, it becomes more real. It's us. It's who we are. And we are galactics, obviously. Anybody that thinks that they're galactic, they're galactic. Because if you're not a galactic, why would you ever think that? It wouldn't even come to your head. It would, you'd say, galactic, what's a galactic? And that's crazy. I know I'm not one of those, whatever that is. But now it's a lot more common. It's an agreement we made. At least this is how it always felt to me. It was an agreement that I made before I took this body. And there's a part of me that has one of those kind of memories, of being in outer space. And also, I saw the pyramids. I had a time when I kind of flew around in my higher dimensional self and saw the different pyramids and could see the ones that were, there was one that didn't have as high as an energy. And then the other two had really high energy fields. And that's where the Arcturians came in. On some level, they were always there. It was through me. And they told me, this is not you, this is through you. You are a scribe. And so then I started writing things down. So how about you? What would you say your path has been?
I would say for my path is that the way in which I've learned to share is you do a lot with your blog posts and with your videos, and something that I have learned to integrate into my practice is being able to share the energy component of it. So I do that a lot through the meditations I lead, through my sound meditations, or just like being able to bring it to a grocery store, for example, where it's like a denser feel and it's like, hey, how are you? It's Friday. Life is great. Like, let's smile a little bit, and it's more of that. This is the feeling and this is the energy that this experience has given to me. It's given me a lot of clarity. It's given me a lot of joy in life that I had before, but it amplified it in a way that I hadn't experienced before. And so I feel like in many ways it's a part of my responsibility to share that joy and to share that love with people, plants, animals, just express and build up that energy field wherever I go. And that's kind of been what my path has been made up of.
Yeah. Mine was all about communication. Now, the first ones that came in were the Arcturians. And I remember that we both remember that situation where we were leaving Atlantis. It was the fall of Atlantis and we were leaving Atlantis. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because this is like a imagination that you had, and I had the exact same imagination, So let's talk about that a little bit.
It's so interesting how people around the world also have like memories or visions or something of a similar nature that connects in with other people. And it's always really fascinating to be able to talk about that with somebody else.
Yeah.
Which is why, like you were saying, the communication is so important, because that wakes up another component of your experience by being able to share with another person. Right. And I would say, as far as Atlantis goes, how I remember, and I'm sure it was called something different that I can't remember. I don't know what other name it was called, but what I remember in my experience specifically with Atlantis was how everything, the field of energy was getting denser and denser and denser. The consciousness was dropping, pretty similar to, a lot of what's happened today. Yeah. And it got to a point in which not just the city, but the continent itself was not going to make it. And there was an awareness of that. And for some people that left, and I do remember leaving, like I do have memories of like being on a boat of some kind and having, different items to carry to other places. But then there were other people that stayed because they were able to kind of quote unquote go down with the ship in a way, but they did it in a way that held that energy field to where the planet wasn't going to, totally tilt off her axis.
There are certain people that stayed, and what I felt is that they sang old Lang Syne, my old acquaintance be forgot, whatever. And there was a lot of the priestesses did that. The high priestesses did that because they were for the land, and they weren't going to leave the land just because the land was crashing down. They held it longer so more people could get off onto the boats, and they had some kind of an air thing that they had then, and so more people could leave.
It's fascinating in a lot of ways because I think a lot of the events are very energetically similar, but at the same time, there's this other component to it where that wasn't necessarily present at Atlantis, where the consciousness is still raising. Like, that is not stopping. But at the same time, there's always that balance. So with the darkest night is always going to come the dawn. And in my perspective, Atlantis was kind of like the beginning into the darkest night. It was like the start. And then progressively that light has been coming in more and more and more and more. And now we're at this point to where, look at this, look what's happening around the world now. We're all connected with each other, maybe not in the best situation, but this is a kind of connectivity that we didn't have in Atlantis.
Right.
It was a very separated kind of feel of that continent, of that city. And
Yeah.
so I think that interconnectedness that we have now, that's on a global level, is really what is changing that energy field and is really what's creating something different.
Yes, and there is like a big disaster that's happening, in Texas now. It's like a big disaster. Tell me what you think this whole climate change, what it means.
It's a message from Gaia. That is what I get from it, because I think this is a reminder that we have all our human dramas, we have all of our human events, but where does that all take place at? We have neglected this earth for how many years? And how we use our energy has not always been very earth friendly. But at the same time, something that we are lacking in many places in the world, not all, but many, is that we don't work with the planet. We use the planet as a resource, but we don't work with the planet where there's a give and take. It's more of a take. So to me, it's Gaia being like, hello, help. Something's obviously not right. And even though you're getting a bulk of it, like, think about it from the whole entire planet's perspective. There's a lot of things that are out of balance, and it's our job now to bring the balance back. Yeah.
It didn't take too many people to get that balance off, Just a couple of really selfish leaders whom we don't need to mention, but we know who they are. And some effective lies and reasons, and people want to hear what they want to hear. So, the leaders that want to really be takers, they will tell the people what they want to hear, because then they'll say, oh, I like you, I'll follow you, and this is a time that people need to really listen inside themselves and communicate with their own higher self, and maybe go out in nature and sit underneath a tree for a while. And, the darkest night is just before dawn. And this is pre-ascension of Gaia. So how do you think about the pre-ascension?
I like how you refer to it almost like the pre, like there is the dawn that's coming, and even if it's not physically apparent, the energy's here. And that's why I think a lot of people say, like, oh, ascension is already a thing. It's more in that people are tapping into that energy field more, and so the energy field is growing within the density of our third dimensional world. And that's really what's creating the big massive changes, whether we see what those changes are or not. And that's kind of like the pre, everything that's happening now, it has to unravel in order for something new to come out. And we can't be too caught up in that unraveling, because it's just another part in the process. All of nature is cyclical. And by connecting with nature, we automatically are able to connect with our galactic selves, because we forget that Earth is inherently a galactic being. She's a planet. She's in the galaxy. So therefore, humans are technically galactics. We just haven't figured out yet on a mass level that there's more galactics out there. Some more people have.
I was just thinking, why would they want to not have that happen? Why would they not want to have a spaceship come? Why would they not want to turn into a higher frequency reality? But of course, the answer is pretty simple, because the frightened, greedy people, they don't think they could make it. They don't think that they could take that step. And so they'd be left out. But what they're not thinking is, if they even took a little of the step, the people that have already taken the step are just going to go over backwards to help them. Because once one takes that step of, we are doing what's best for the planet, we are here for the planet, we took an Earth vessel in this now to assist with planetary ascension. When we think in terms of planetary ascension, now that is collective reality. That's a collective reality. And that would be everyone on the whole planet. And everyone assisting everyone to be able to do that. And with the fall of Atlantis, it was kind of like that because they couldn't fix it. It'd gone too long and it was going to go down. But they did manage to get a lot of the people off because they cooperated. And because other people volunteered to stay and hold the energy field as long as possible. So more and more people could get off. And so there's all this unselfish, let us all do it together for the one. Let's do it for the planet. And just think, if people thought about, let's do it for the planet. Not for the people, not for the money, not for the fame, for the planet.
That's literally common ground. That is base number one. And as you were saying, I think that people get more inclined to hold back what they do know or hold back from sharing the deeper truths to what else is out there because they are worried that, okay, the control that we have, whether it's through politics, religion, whatever kind of structure, will not hold the same grasp if that information were to come out. And it's not to say that it's not there, but the ways in which that we understand like who we are, where are we, what is the real history of Earth, everything that we know would automatically have a totally completely different book and chapter to it. And so it would, and that would be like a reset in many different ways. And so I think a lot of people aren't ready to give up that sense of power that they might have. Because they know that if people were to become aware fully on a massive level of what is happening and that we're not the only beings out there, then everything changes, everything shifts. But that's a good thing when it is for the planet.
Maybe we just have to be still and get that next channel and find out what's, follow the flow. There's a galactic flow, and the galactics have been wanting to land for a long time, but they know that the humans would freak out and get out their guns and their bombs and all that kind of nonsense. And so that's the next step, is that people have to get out of the arrogance that Earth, and specifically the United States, is the best country in the whole multiverse. And pretty much we're seeing that no, because look at all the things that have gone wrong in this such perfect country here. That has to get the arrogance out. We have to come together. There's this thing about horses. Horses are very evolved beings. They are able to really be with the land and be with the humans. That's the difference. And in so much of humanity, it's this or that. You're either going to be with the land or you're going to be with, this material thing that you have to have, or this job that you want, or this money that you need to get, or whatever. And when one is with the land, then they get a bigger perspective. If we can just look at Gaia, Gaia is so beautiful. And too many humans did too many things to harm her. And she could only take so much harming. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now, is that she has been beat up for too long and she needs to go to the doctor. And the doctor is the humans, and they need to go to her. The horses are like a form of the Arcturians, because the Arcturians, they took the human form, but they knew all that went with human form. So they wanted to get a big, strong, loving, kind animal, four-legged, connected to the ground. And so what was it? It was a horse. The Arcturians, their favorite form is to be a horse, more than a human. Yeah.
Fascinating. That is so. That's really interesting, because there are a lot of animals, including horses, birds, especially,
Yeah.
that they have that special kind of vibration. I think that's with all animals, really.
Yeah.
But what they signify, the message and the meaning behind them, really does say a lot.
Yeah. And they're one with nature. And humans' biggest mistake is that they've tried to conquer nature as opposed to heal, love, honor, pray to, be with nature. Everyone can connect with the Arcturians. And they can connect with the other galactic members. But the Arcturians are, they're like the leaders. They're like the generals, like we said before. And, just go straight to the top and just say, I am here to serve Gaia. I am here not to get rich, not to get famous. I am here to save this planet. And just imagine if everybody made that vow, if everybody said, I am here to save this planet. Gaia is a beautiful planet. And it needs us. She needs us. I'd like to close this with everybody. Blaze, blaze, blaze the violet fire, transmuting all shadow into light, light, light. And anytime you're frightened, anytime you're hungry and don't have enough food, anytime you're cold and you don't have enough jackets, just blaze, blaze, blaze the violet fire, transmuting all shadow into light, light, light. And allow the light that is within you, innately within you, to join with the light that is around you, innately around you. And what a combination of love and light.